Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nourished and Thriving Show. I'm Katie Lovitt, registered dietitian, owner of Nourish and Thrive Nutrition Counseling. And we're so happy that y'all joined us this Wednesday evening. I forgot what day of the week it was for a second. We're talking about something really important tonight, as we do every week, but we're getting a little spicy. I am emanating my middle child, who is a little hot tamale tonight in a certain way. We're going to do so respectfully, but we're going to speak some truth and be maybe a little controversial, calling some people out here without disrespecting, respectfully disagreeing, you can say. So the guys here, the other hosts, I'm the only girl, by the way, on Eclipse Pain and Recovery Network. Maybe we need to change that. The only girl host. But the guys sent me something. I am in my own bubble a lot of the time. I don't know if you guys ever are also, but I am just back to back seeing patients, managing my team, managing my 3 kids, getting nourishing food on our own tables, trying to keep up with laundry. And we adopted a cat a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
So I don't consume a lot of media right now in this season of my life. I don't really watch a lot of TV. It takes me a couple months to get through a book. I started reading for fun again last year because I really missed it. Before, I was only reading personal development books or business books or nutrition books. I was like, you know what? I need to add just some fiction back into my life for fun. So that's about the only hobby I do besides exercise. So I don't consume a lot of social media. So the guys sent me this reel about Girl Scout cookies, and they were like, "This is really trending right now. What do you think, Katie?" They're so funny. They're always asking me what I think about different trending nutrition stuff, which I'm pretty much the least trendy person there is. So it's funny to get my take on all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, it's true. I mean, I really love supporting the Girl Scouts and everything that they're doing, but man, all the stuff about the glyphosate and heavy metals and all of that stuff coming up in the ingredients is becoming more front and center on social media lately. And I mean, if you look at the ingredients in them, they're not great, which is unfortunate. And if there's a Girl Scout out there that needs a good project, if you wanted to optimize the ingredients in your cookies, I would love that. But I think it brings to light, I guess, a bigger point and a bigger issue in our country right now. And this is kind of this polarization and extremism and then segmentation of these different foods. And what it ends up doing, I think, is just cause damage a lot of the time. It tends to create fear, right? And whenever we're making decisions out of fear, that's generally not going to get us ultimately where we want to go. And so I don't love all these extreme. And you have to remember, social media is not real. People on social media are trying to get you to engage with their comment, or their content rather. So the things that they're going to be saying are going to be polarizing, right? Because they want to just throw something out there, see what sticks to the wall, and get some opinions and feedback from you, and get more followers and get more, conversations going. And so you have to keep that in mind whenever you're watching stuff on whatever platform that you're watching things on, including YouTube, including our show too. We really try to educate here, but we're also trying to, bring important conversations and get you to think about things in a way that maybe you haven't been able to before. And I think that that's maybe a benefit of this longer form content versus a reel. You've got 3 seconds or whatever to hook somebody in and put your whole opinion out there without context. And I think whenever we start making food decisions without context, without the bigger picture, like I said, it creates these extreme viewpoints and creates a lot of fear, a lot of disagreement, a lot of dissension among the ranks. So today I really want to help you guys kind of make sense of some of this stuff and find a way, because most of the time people are stuck between these extremes of like being afraid of food chemicals that may or may not be making a big difference. Or, I had a patient this past week come to me with a handout that they received from a different care provider that told them it was perfectly fine for kidney health to eat things that we know in the bigger context of health is not great. It's not health supportive. Maybe in the very specific realm of that specific lab value that they're trying to manipulate, it's not going to cause harm there, but they're failing to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. And I think that that's true of both of those extremes there. So before we dive into all of that, I want us to do a quick callback to last week's episode. So if you missed it, make sure you go back and watch it and then like that episode so that other people can go watch it, because it was a really important one. And it's important for today's context as well. So we talked about, why maybe you're eating enough calories or the right amount of calories, or maybe even too many calories and still feeling exhausted or run down, and you're like, man, I'm eating enough. Why am I not feeling my best? And so we really walked through how our bodies use nutrients from food to create energy, to detoxify harmful chemicals within our body, either that are byproducts of normal living or coming from the outside world. I think there's a lot of questions and misunderstanding about that stuff. So go check that episode out. But remembering nutrients are important. Food matters, and we have to think about the big picture. We can't lose, the big picture because we're just looking at one thing in a really kind of myopic way there. So we have, a couple of extremes I mentioned before, this extreme of like, we're scared of everything. And then this other extreme of like, everything goes. If it's not impacting this one lab value, it's fine. And so this fear-based nutrition is the first extreme. And so we're talking about chemicals, toxins, ingredient panic. And this is where, people will come to me and say, oh, I saw this post on Instagram and this ingredient's bad, or this ingredient's a superfood and it can cure all my ills and ailments. Is that true? What do you know about that? Tell me what you know about this. And this kind of messaging tends to make people feel like everything is harmful, or, one thing can save everything else, which we know is not true. But it makes people feel very scared typically, right? It's fear-based. And then the other extreme is more of this reductionist nutrition camp. It's technically allowed. It's condition specific, but not necessarily whole person oriented. They're missing that. Like I mentioned a minute ago about the patient that I had who, literally was handed a handout from a healthcare provider allowing like Kool-Aid and Capri Sun, and if you boil your hot dogs in water, it demineralizes them and makes them safe. And, okay, maybe that's not going to immediately impact these specific lab values they're looking at, but is it going to create optimal health is the other question. And I'm all about meeting people where they're at, and maybe they are over here and they need just some modifications. But then the ultimate goal would be to kind of stair-step them back into this middle ground, not on either of these extreme ends. And ultimately, I think we want a relationship with food that is joy-based, at peace, not fear-driven, intentional. You feel like you have power and control over your food choices. You're not living in this feeling of fear or guilt or shame about what you're eating. We want it to be intentional and feel good. And so we don't want to live in fear. We also don't want to miss that picture of just overall health. And so a lot of the time we swing kind of widely from one extreme to the next, and maybe you view this as kind of on the wagon and off the wagon. Sometimes I hear that from people too. I'm either on or I'm off. I'm either super, super strict and, cooking everything organic from home fresh and never eating out, never eating anything from a package. And then I wind up exhausted and I'm scared all the time and I'm stressed out. And this can actually continue on the spectrum where people won't eat out with their family or friends ever. They'll go and they'll sit there and they won't order because they're scared of the ingredients in that food. Sometimes it can be more symptom based, right? Like they know they'll have an immediate reaction to something because their health is really fragile. That's different. I'm talking about, more fear-based decisions in eating. And then they'll fall off the wagon because they're exhausted or they say, whatever, I can't escape all the chemicals over here. So, I'm just going to do enough to maybe not mess up this lab value that matters to me and just not worry about it. Like they said that, they said Kool-Aid is fine. So I'm going to drink Kool-Aid all day. When in your brain that doesn't logically really make sense, that it supports health, right? Like I think we can all pretty much agree with that. But people are confused about what actually matters. And so it's hard for them to make a decision of where to be in that. So, why does this happen? Why does this happen? I think we really forget a lot of the time how complicated our bodies are. And we tend to just look at things through a single lens. We try to overly simplify things and really, I think, disempower patients to just do as I say and don't ask questions. And maybe as healthcare providers, it can come sometimes from a fear of not fully knowing every answer out there. And so you may feel dismissed by a provider if you start asking too many questions. They just say, oh, just do what I say, just I'm the expert. Listen to me. Stop asking so many questions. What I'm saying is right. And, if you've been listening in and joining in for a while now, like our body's really complicated and nutrition is a pretty new science. And so, not everyone knows everything, and don't discount the value you bring to the conversation of being an expert in your own body, right? You know your body better than any healthcare provider knows. So nutrition can kind of get reduced and our bodies can get oversimplified. We can start looking at single nutrients, and boy, howdy, our government is great at this, right? Like it's saturated fat, it's total fat, it's, this, it's sugar, it's that, it's, whatever. And I think that's where all of these kind of extreme trends can even come from too, right? Of carbs are the enemy and fat's the enemy. And no wonder everyone's confused. It changes, about every 5 minutes. And then they do a full circle and start re-recommending what they were recommending 10 years ago. And if you've been around long enough, you've heard all of it. And then you're just really confused, right? Anyone been here? Has anyone been in this position before? So single nutrients, single macronutrients, single food groups get singled out. Single conditions. I think this is really kind of a state of the healthcare environment right now where we have our bodies are complicated, right? And a person can only know so much. And so to go as deep into knowledge as a lot of physicians especially need to go, they really have to specialize, right? Because it's such a robust amount of information to fully master it. Humans only have the bandwidth to master like one topic at a time because there's just so much to know. And then you have physicians who are seeing, 30 patients a day at least. they don't have time to go collaborate with teams, and cross collaborate and work with other people and sit there and have a conversation about your case. That happens pretty rarely, honestly. And so you're kind of forced into this, I'm seeing this specialist, this one condition is being considered, and that's all they're looking at. That was kind of in the case of this patient I was mentioning. She was at a specialist. They were just talking about this one situation. They were not zooming out and looking at everything else she had going on, personalizing those recommendations to her needs. They're giving her a handout based on, this is the lab value we want you to pay attention to. Here's a handout, that you need to follow. And then single rules is the other kind of space that nutrition can get reduced into. This could be something like, don't eat after, 8 o'clock at night, fast for a certain amount of time every single, night, no matter what the situation is in your personal life. And I do think, generally taking a rest from food overnight is a good thing, but you have to also consider your lifestyle and what's going on in your life at the same time. And so we can't ever just make these, broad blanket statements about a certain rule all the time. It has to be personalized. The body works as systems. Remember that huge biochemical reaction chart we looked at last week of all of the different reactions in your body. Those are happening between all of the different systems. Your cells are communicating with each other. The organs are communicating with each other. Everything affects everything else. And, our bodies work as systems. There's these interactions, and it's all about creating balance. And so if you fail to zoom out and look at that big picture, you're really only going to get suboptimal results. And it's going to end up being in those two extremes that we were talking about, that fear-based or that reductionistic view. And so, I think there's something to be said about simplifying something to be able to explain it to people who don't have the extensive training that health professionals have. But whenever we oversimplify it so much that it misses the point, it stops being helpful, we really need to pause and think about, what are we doing here? What's the point? What is our mission? We've lost sight of what we're working towards here. So you guys with me here? Has that ever happened to y'all? Have y'all ever been in the reductionistic view or that extreme fear-based view? Have you ever been caught in either one of those ends? Y'all comment in the chat if you have been.
Absolutely on my end.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think we all have been. I have been. I have been too. I think that's one reason I became a dietitian, because I was confused about nutrition as a kid, and I grew up in the 90s when it was the low fat and the Snackwell's Devil's Food Cake were in our pantry, right? And then Atkins came along and South Beach came along, and I guess it was the early 2000s when those came out. And I was like, wait a minute, but this is the opposite. And so I wanted to understand and I wanted to know. And it's one of those things where it's like, whoa, once you get your toes wet, you realize there's a whole ocean out there. There's not just a simple, I'm going to figure it out. It's not easy. That's why there's so many different theories and diets and pieces of advice out there. So,
for me personally, I think it came through religion.
Oh, tell me more.
Lots of fasting.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's interesting. There's actually an episode, I don't know if you ever listened to Dr. Josh Axe's podcast, Kevin. I think he's a chiropractor actually, but he has some pretty interesting perspectives. And he's a Christian, pretty open about his faith. But he just did, I think he's Protestant, and did an episode with a Catholic. I don't think he's a priest because I think he was married, but somebody in the Catholic Church. And they were talking about how a lot of churches don't do fasting and stuff anymore, and the importance of it, but it can be taken to an extreme too, where then it kind of falls off the other. I mean, just like we were talking about those extremes, where then it falls off the other end. So entire country is fear-based. Yeah. Not a very good place to be making decisions from. So sometimes it's hard. So what do we do with this? What's a better way? I think, like I said, knowledge is power, right? Learn what you can. Find good experts who seek to continuously learn, who never say, I've checked the box. I know everything there is to know. I'm the expert. I am the go-to for nutrition, and I don't need to learn anything else ever. I have it all figured out. I have all the answers. I see some of that marketing, honestly, on social media from people selling stuff to, before I went insurance based, actually, I was doing a cash program. I had a really hard time with that because there were all my competition out there promising the whole world and making all these promises. And I was just like, man, I don't ethically feel comfortable making some of these promises, out there. So, it's just kind of hard to be in that space, but it's easy to get sucked in. They'll promise you the world, whether it's skincare or fashion or, can you tell my girl, nutrition, health, whatever, fitness, if, whatever it is, money, business, like they promise you the world. But a lot of the time that's actually kind of a red flag to me now, because I know that oftentimes the stronger the claim, the less they actually know or have the ability to help you. Right? Let me know if you guys ever have experienced that there. So what's a better way? Instead of asking an extreme question, a yes or no question, ask a question of curiosity, right? We talked about this a few weeks ago, whenever we were talking about a diagnosis and how once you have a diagnosis, that should be kind of a statement of curiosity, right? Where it's like a lot of the time a diagnosis is treated as the end of the conversation. You have this diagnosis, go be with this diagnosis instead of asking how or why or, what can we do about it? And so a lot of the time we ask very black and white questions about food. Is this food good or is it bad? Is this a bad food? Y'all even made me do it, man. I felt so pushed into the corner on that gas station episode, although y'all made it pretty easy with those like blue talkies and stuff. Dr. Dustin. But, is this good or is it bad? Which one's better? Which one's worse? It was like,
like how much you don't really consume.
I just don't. Yeah.
Fast foods at all.
No, I just don't.
You're my inspiration. I'm telling you, I think about you now every single time I go out to eat. And I consider like, is a better option that Walmart chicken that was rotisserie? Or do I just, get that quick burger?
Yeah, but is it that much quicker? I think it helps that we live in the country a little bit. It's 15 minutes to drive to a fast food restaurant, get it, and then 15 minutes back. That's 40 minutes. I can totally whip something up at home in that amount of time, even if it's something from the freezer, frozen veggies I pour onto a sheet pan with some leftovers. So that helps a little bit. But yeah, I think, good or bad, I think that, and then that tends to create more shame and fear, right? Because if you've labeled something as bad, then you eat it, then you're like, oh, I shouldn't have eaten this. I feel guilty. I'm embarrassed I ate this, and that's just not serving anyone very well. I think the better question is to ask, what is this food doing in my body? What is this doing to help me? Is this potentially going to cause harm? And do I still want to eat it? Do I still choose to eat it? And if you know that the food is going to potentially cause harm, remember that was the last thing we looked at in Keith's Food Journal review. If you guys missed that episode, go listen. We talked about the 4 things that I look for whenever I'm reviewing my patients' food logs. But the last thing is there something that's going to potentially cause harm or, keep you from achieving your health goals? Sometimes the answer is going to be yes, I still want to eat this. My birthday's on Friday. I'm going to have some cake that my grandma made, and there's nothing beneficial in that cake that's going to go like, help me be stronger or live longer, but it's going to taste good and it's a celebration and I'm going to enjoy it with my family. And so I'm going to choose to eat it, and that's okay. I'm not going to feel guilty or ashamed about it or anything. And I think that can be a slippery slope too of like a disordered eating, a disordered relationship with food whenever we start defining food as good or bad. I think we're starting to see that a little bit more in the media again, which is kind of scary. Like we're starting to see like 90s and 2000s, like super skinny celebrities from all of the GLP-1 use and stuff, abuse, I would say. And whenever you're consuming a lot of media, again, that starts to get damaging to be around all the time. So be mindful of that, you guys. Take care out there. So what is this food doing in my body? Okay, well, before I came, I ate a couple of ham, like mini sliders, and cup and a half of leftover roasted broccoli. So like the ham mini sliders, okay, I had some carbs. I did a leg workout this morning. I needed to refuel those muscles, restore the, reset those glycogen stores. Ham with some protein, probably some fat too. And then the broccoli, has lots of phytonutrients and fiber. And then it had oil on it too, because it was roasted. So it had some avocado oil, which is healthy fatty acids. So you can kind of start to think through, like, what is this food doing for me? And that's something a dietitian can help you do, who's, properly trained and who thinks about food like I'm thinking about food, right? Obviously, there's lots of different dietitians, lots of different approaches. But they can help you kind of start to learn, hey, vegetables tend to have these nutrients and they tend to do this, this, and this for you. And so whenever you become more educated with nutrition, you start to want to make those choices because you understand how it affects your body. Because when I just said that question a minute ago, what is this food doing in my body? You may say, I have no idea. I don't know. So, okay, instead of feeling like, I don't know anything, be curious, go research, Google. What does broccoli do in your body? What nutrients are in broccoli? Why is that important? I think it's kind of like money, right? We all have money. Not all of us are financial advisors for our day job, but we have to become educated enough to manage our money, to invest it well, to steward it well. And so, you can't just bury your head in the sand. The reality is you live in a world where you have to interact with money every single day. The same is true of food. You have a body. You don't have to go be a registered dietitian. I actually probably would discourage you from doing it, especially now they require a master's degree. That's a lot.
You sound like Dr. Lee. He's discouraging being in the medical field as well.
It's hard, y'all. It's rough out there. I can't believe they made dietitians go get a master's degree now. Those poor people are going to have a hard time recouping that investment, to be very honest. But you can go become an expert in your own body, and what you're using to fuel it. And I encourage you to go do that, to go be a good steward of your body, that you've been given, to take care of it, to care for it well. So whenever you guys think about this, food like this, instead of good or bad, take it a step further, get a little more curious. We're going to look at 3 different lenses basically of this. So the first one is, does this food support my body's systems? This is like detoxification and energy production that we talked about last week. A dietitian can help you see other systems that may need support. And maybe for you, you have a body system, I guess you could say. I wanted to say endocrine system, but that's one system. Maybe you have a system or a condition that needs special care and that's of extra concern for you. So you need to go learn more about that system and what nutrients it needs and doesn't need. Does this support the system? So energy, detoxification, we mentioned those. Digestion, is it supporting gut health? We've talked about that here on the show before. Inflammation, is it going to help, manage inflammation, my immune system? Is it supporting that? So looking at all of our different body systems and what is this food doing to those? The second is, what is the overall pattern? We're not just looking at one meal. We're not just looking at one ingredient. We're looking at repeated exposure consistently versus an occasional, piece of cake on your birthday type of situation, right? The patient I was mentioning earlier, she was so scared. She was very much in that fear-based eating because she'd been reading a bunch online. I told you to go Google and find stuff out online, but be careful if you start feeling scared. stop and go ask an expert for help and guidance for you, because there's a lot of confusing information out there. Go research food, maybe. Don't research any diseases that you have. That can get really scary really fast. But, she was thinking, if I have this food or this nutrient one time, it can she has a kidney concern. So it's going to mess up my kidney values. My GFR is going to go down if I have this one time. And so she was starting to get very scared. She was losing weight. She wasn't eating enough because she was scared. And so I was able to help her take a breath, pause. It's not going to be one meal. One meal is not going to hurt your kidney. It's what are we doing over time? Now, what's the threshold for you? At what point does it become repeated enough to where it does cause harm? I don't know. That's personal. That depends on each person, our resiliency. I have an example that I've been wanting to do for you guys, and I haven't done it with some scales. It depends on your genetics. It depends on other conditions. It depends on your stress level, your sleep, all these other things, your micronutrient status. So it's hard to say, what the inputs versus the outputs are for you. That's personal. You probably have a gut feeling of where you're at with this, right? Most of us know. So does this support my body systems? What's the overall pattern? And then the third lens is, what does my body need? And that's what I was just talking about, is it has to be personalized. What is your lifestyle? Do you have chronic illnesses going on? What are your symptoms? Do you know that tomatoes give you horrible indigestion every time you eat them? Okay, so maybe tomatoes aren't the best food for you. That's not to say they aren't fine for me, but maybe they're not the best food for you. I was talking with another patient today about some insulin resistant stuff and needing to identify how many carbohydrates her body can handle at a meal. Just because I can handle a certain amount, that doesn't mean that that's what her body can handle at a certain time. And so that's where working with a dietitian and getting it more personalized is really helpful. So people, are really trying to do everything right, I think, or you've just kind of resigned yourself to the fact of, I just am not going to eat well, and that's just going to be fine. That's just going to be how it is. And that if that's you, I really encourage you to take a step back. You've got this. You can make these changes. I know it can feel confusing and overwhelming and frustrating, but also don't go into that other extreme of trying to do everything right. Don't let yourself get overwhelmed. Take one baby step at a time. Don't feel guilty. Every time that you make a choice that you wish you hadn't made, it's just an opportunity for you to learn. Okay, what happened? I ate this. I really wanted it in the moment, and then I immediately regretted it, or I felt bad, or I regretted it the next day. Why? What happened? Why did I regret it? Did I feel sick? Did I just eat too much? Was it not that good and I just ate it anyway? Or I wasn't really hungry and I ate it? Or I should have gone to Walmart and gotten the rotisserie chicken and I went and got the cheeseburger like Kevin said. Okay, how would I handle it differently next time? So that whenever that comes up, I'm not doing that again, if that's what I choose to do. And so, you're not failing at nutrition. I don't want you to think, oh, I'm just a failure. I'm hopeless. I'm just going to not eat well. You just don't have the education or the tools that you need a lot of the time to make the decisions that need to be made in a world of extremes and conflicting information and suggestions. And so, this confusion is often a sign that either someone's trying to sell you something, someone's trying to get a reaction out of you, or that the system and the framework is just broken, or nobody really knows, or there's not one right answer. There's not one right answer to this. We tend to think, other people know more than we know. I tend to think that that's one of my biggest weaknesses, I would say, as a professional, is doubting myself. I think a lot of people tend to do that. But y'all, you're wise. You know your body better than you think. You know what you need to do. You just need to give yourself the space and respect to listen to yourself. I do want to give you guys some guidance here around chemicals. I feel like it's such a hot topic. And if you missed last week's, I've said this about 5 times now, go listen. I think it's maybe one of the favorite episodes I've done. I explained detoxification. And so we're talking about food chemicals, toxins, Detoxes are really fad, not FAD. They're popular, they're trendy. There's lots to sell there because people are scared of toxins and chemicals. They sound mysterious. Go listen to that episode because it's going to explain how detoxification works and how our bodies naturally take care of that for us when it's supported. But I wanted to share something whenever you're making food choices that's going to be helpful. First of all, Girl Scouts are a fun food, right? Girl Scout. We're not cannibals.
This one up.
I'm tired, y'all. I was just telling Kevin, I need to get my kids in bed on time. Girl Scouts aren't food. We're not cannibals. Girl Scout cookies are a fun.
I just understood that.
Oh, you missed it? I wonder how many other people. Yeah, I said Girl Scouts aren't food. We can laugh about it. Girl Scouts aren't food. Girl Scout cookies are a fun food. Those are never going to do anything like to help your body be healthier, right? But if you enjoy them, it's a fun food, Okay, you can choose when and how much and what you want to consume from that. That's your choice. You can make an empowered, educated decision around that. So I think in the context of like, they're loaded with all these heavy metals and chemicals and all of that, I think it's missing the point that it's a cookie. Right. And it is full of, some not great ingredients. You'd probably be better off making cookies at home, but if you're like nostalgic and wanting to support the Girl Scouts and all of that, like you make that decision for yourself.
Or if you get bombarded right at the front door of a Walmart.
I got bombarded at in the dance studio yesterday by a girl selling chocolate bars. She didn't even tell me what she was selling them for, and she didn't even thank me.
It doesn't even matter. No. You see that cute face and you're like, oh, okay. She's giving me the eyes. No. And
I know.
How do I look?
I felt totally guilty. Yep. I know. I told my kids in the way home, I said, if y'all are ever selling something, you go up, you introduce yourself, you tell them who you're with, you tell them what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you thank them.
Yeah.
Anyways, if you get bombarded and you buy them and then you decide to eat them because you bought them, whatever, you do you. But I think, the whole like they're loaded with all these harmful chemicals. Yeah, it's frustrating, but guess what? So is a lot of our food supply. It's not just the Girl Scout cookies. We have to be educated about what's going into our bodies. Cookies are a fun food. Okay. Bottom line. A lot of produce actually has chemicals in it as well because we have access to fresh fruits and vegetables year round. You drive to the grocery store and you buy it. Now the Sweet Caroline blackberries at H-E-B are only available this time of year. But they, we're not having to grow food in our backyard or buy it from the farmer next door. They're, making food available everywhere. We don't have a shortage of food. And so, agriculture in the US has used science to make that happen. They use herbicides and pesticides, and that's a larger conversation for another day. I love the concept of regenerative agriculture. Is it scalable? I don't really know. That's not my area of expertise. I hope we can shift more into that way. I think maybe we're becoming more aware of that as an option. It'll be interesting over the next 10 to 20 years to see kind of what happens with that regenerative agriculture movement. If you guys are aware of that, comment. If y'all know more than I do about it, I'd love to hear more about it. But a tool that's available to us is from the Environmental Working Group, the EWG. And every year they release their Dirty Dozen and Clean 15. And Kevin has a couple of images for us. And so if you are buying fruits and vegetables and you're like, man, I think I should buy organic, but it's so expensive. How can I prioritize this? The Dirty Dozen list is here on the screen for you guys now. And these are the 12 types of produce that had the highest chemical amounts. So if you can only buy some foods organic, these would be the 12 that I would recommend that you prioritize. So it's spinach, kale, collard and mustard greens, strawberries, grapes, nectarines, peaches, cherries, apples, blackberries, pears, potatoes, and blueberries for 2026. So I would say, if you can prioritize organic in these 12 things, that would be amazing. If you don't eat these 12 things, go buy some organic. This is a really great, way to say, hey, I haven't done anything with kale. I wonder what I can do with that. Go find a recipe, try it out next week. See, we like the lacinato kale or dinosaur kale. My kids like the name dinosaur kale and I get them to eat it because of it. We saute it with some Kerrygold butter and some garlic and lemon juice and some salt and pepper. And it's so good. My kids eat it, y'all.
Crunchy too.
Yeah. It's really good.
It holds itself better than spinach.
Yes. I don't like cooked spinach at all. I'll put spinach in a smoothie. I'll eat it in a salad, but cooked spinach is not my favorite thing. Okay. So that's the Dirty Dozen. You can go find this on Facebook, Instagram, their website, search in EWG Dirty Dozen 2026. It'll pull up. What was the next image? Was it Clean 15? Yeah. So these were the lowest chemical produce for 2026. So if you're prioritizing, your budget and you're like, I can't buy everything organic, these would be 15 things that, hey, you can probably buy conventional. I think it was 60% of the foods on this list. I'm not sure which ones exactly didn't measure any chemical levels. So, these are relatively fine to buy conventional, especially if you're watching your budget. Maybe a little bit lower nutrient level than organic. That I think remains to be seen. I think it can vary between farms and their practices, but pineapple, sweet corn, avocados, papaya, onion, sweet peas, frozen, asparagus, cabbage, cauliflower, watermelon, mangoes, bananas, carrots, mushrooms, and kiwi. Those are all on the Clean 15 list for 2026. So that's good. And then there was some in the middle. So these, are closer to, you can see like the Clean 15 with the up arrow and broccoli's right underneath it. So those are closer to the Clean 15. So those are probably generally okay to get conventional as well. And then on the right, the plums and green beans and all of that, that's getting closer to the Dirty Dozen. So again, like if you're going to go buy bell peppers, maybe it's a little better to get organic if you're able to. But again, if budget's a concern, we don't want to get into this fear of, I can't buy organic bell peppers, so I'm not going to buy any at all. No. Like that's not where we're going with this, right? It's just, if you can afford to buy some organic, but not all, this is a really great guardrail. Have you guys seen this before?
I haven't, but I'll tell you this. If my ex-wife is out there listening, thank you very much, because she gave me many good years with almost everything that was on that list.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And she gives my kids that on a very regular basis. So shout out to you. Linus, you know who you are. Good job. You're feeding them well.
That's awesome. I
wish I could be there to eat some too.
Yeah. It's hard to get it happen. Lugnet says when you work full time and get 2 kids to practice in games 4 times a week, you have to make sacrifices. You do. I was telling Kevin before I came here, I got 2/3 of the kids fed. The younger 2 with my husband to my youngest t-ball practice. My oldest daughter was at dance for 3 hours. So she'll eat dinner when she gets home. So we did pretty simple leftovers, fruit. One thing that's helped me a lot to get us to eat produce during the week is spending 30 minutes when I'm unloading groceries, go ahead and wash and chop the produce. That way it's ready to go. When I'm making lunches in the mornings, the grapes are washed and pulled off the stems. The strawberries are washed and chopped. The bell peppers are washed and chopped. The cucumbers are washed and chopped. Everything's in containers in our fridge, ready to just put into the lunch boxes, put onto a plate with dinner. It really makes it a lot easier. It lowers the barriers to success during the week when you don't feel like it. It's really silly, but doing things like, I think I've told you guys before, I have the white storage containers in our garage fridge and I get a dry erase marker and I write the recipe, chicken with fajita veggies, whatever, on dry erase marker on the end of the tub. I put all the ingredients in the tub. I put the chicken, if I can, chopped veggies. If I can't chop them, I at least throw them in the bin, whatever spices and seasonings I need to use. And it's like a homemade meal kit for a fraction of the cost. And for whatever reason, just that extra step of not having to go corral all the ingredients, I just have to pull that bin out on the night of making it, makes me like, I don't know, 75% more likely to make it than to just say whatever, have a snacky dinner and eat leftovers. So stuff like that, chopping vegetables whenever you have a minute, can be helpful. I saw somebody on Instagram, a mom, I get up early and work out. So I'd have to get up even earlier. And thankfully I have time on Mondays to do this. But if you just don't have time on, a Monday or a Sunday to do this, she would get up early and prep her veggies like on a Monday morning type of thing for the week, because that was when she had time in her schedule. So it can be done. It does require sacrifices. Sometimes the sacrifice is, a TV show on the weekend, it's time.
You're right.
It's time. And I don't want to like get into this extremist space either, but everything costs something, right? And convenience costs something, just not right now all the time. Your pocketbook, a lot of the time we talked about that, about how expensive gas station food can be. But I think a lot of the time, if we're choosing those more convenient options that aren't as supporting of our health goals, it's going to ultimately cost us something down the road. It may just not see it right then. And so do you really want to pay for today with your future quality of life? That's a decision you can make. And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is we are going through the drive-through and that's our choice for today. But again, what are we doing on a consistent basis? What are we repeating day in and day out? That's what really matters. And that's how you shift the scales one way or the other. You guys have any questions? Yeah, U.S. is way behind the curve compared to other countries. Other countries produce way healthier foods than us. Yeah, and I think it's just our culture. I don't think we value food, as much as other cultures do. I don't think we respect our bodies. I don't think we have a lot of respect for a lot of things in our country, actually.
I think we do. I think this is just a personal anecdote from travel. From what I've seen, we allow far more marketplace interaction. Other countries allow far more marketplace interactions from like grower to seller than our country does. In order to sell, forget about the farmer's market. You really got to get into a big box store or into some of the supply chain. In order to do that, it's millions of dollars for entry.
Huge. These farmers are having to sell out to a bigger company and
so
just follow
forget
what
about
they say.
the small gardeners. They're cooked.
Yeah. So you're saying in other countries, it's a lot more like farm to table, farm to market.
If anyone that grows something brings it to the farmer's market and you just go there every weekend and pick up what you need. That's literally the grocery store.
Or even several times a week. People shop a lot more frequently, I think, in other countries. You probably know more than that than I do, but they'll just go. When I lived in Spain, there was a little grocery store. We lived in an apartment. I was in Barcelona. And so like down in the lower level was all retail, and so there's a little supermarket downstairs and people just go get what they needed for that day or the next couple days. And they just went more frequently. I'm
curious of one thing. In Germany, I was born and raised in Germany too, by the way. So, but there, our refrigerators are super small. Is it the same in Spain as well?
It was not as big as ours here. It wasn't like dorm size or anything, but it was small.
You could fit
her kitchen was
three
small.
people in an American fridge.
Yeah, right. And then we have an extra one in our garage for spillover, which we shop about once a week. So, but yeah, and we have a freezer full of meat. We get our meat shipped to us on dry ice. So, that is pretty much from the ranchers though, which is nice. But, it's interesting because it's like almost a paradox, right? Where it's like food is very central to our culture, but it's also less central than other countries. And it's like, if we made it a bigger focus, we may not have as many problems as we have now. But I think a lot of people would say it is a big focus. It's just like in a weird, twisted way. I don't know if anyone has clarity. Let us know.
Well, John Kennedy, I hope you're on this.
Yeah, JFK. We'll see. So yeah, We have a few minutes for questions if y'all want to type those in, and we're going to kind of ask some other questions here. Do you guys feel overwhelmed or confused whenever it comes to nutrition? Do you have the fear going on that we were talking about? And then what's something that you've heard about food recently that made you question what to believe? Have you seen the Girl Scout reels going around?
What is that?
Y'all sent it in Instagram. Someone did. It was either...
I saw the discussion,
Did you see
but
it?
I didn't
You didn't see the
see
reel?
No.
Yeah, I didn't go research it further, but they said it was like trending on Instagram right now. So it's just basically this like light bulb of like every type of Girl Scout cookie had all these chemicals in it and stuff. Yeah. Leslie says, lead with curiosity. I think that's really, I don't know. You've asked at the beginning of our like series here, Kevin, you used to ask like, what's your word of the week or phrase of the week? And
Right.
I think lead with curiosity is a good one for this week. I think instead of getting judgmental, get curious. And I think that that's going to open you up and kind of reframe things in a much more positive way. So, well, good. Well, if there's no more questions, if you liked tonight's show, please like it by clicking the button, subscribe to our channel, and sharing is caring. Share this episode. If you had somebody send you the Girl Scout reel, send them this episode. Send this to 2 friends and ask them to subscribe to our channel too. And we'll see you guys next week. I will be a year older on Wednesday.
Congratulations. That's what's up.
The last year of my 30s. And I'll be here next Wednesday at 7. Oh, Lugna has a question. Have you ever had to do a hard pivot away from the food? Sorry, we're doing the music here. Let me see if I can see this question. My chat like cuts off weirdly sometimes. I don't know why it does that.
Let's see.
Where did it go?
Have you ever had to do a hard pivot away from food that had been encouraged, then told never to eat it?
Oh, so Lugnut, just seeing from you from the past few shows, I have a little bit of an idea about your health history. Yeah, I mean, I've not personally had to do that, but I've had other people had to do it. And again, I think it comes down to the personal needs there, right? Where needs change. Needs can change. It's not always what is helpful for your health today may not always be the case. And so staying open to change is important too. Let's see here. Okay, I think that was it. But we'll be back next Wednesday. I wanted to make sure I answered your question. Sorry. We'll be back next Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central, the Nourish and Thriving Show. Subscribe, like, share. It really means a lot. We're trying to help more people be less confused about their health and more empowered. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see y'all next time.